Dang. Oh man. How many people in the world can say that they have their own coin? Well, Peter's one of those people. This thing's worth $30. I think I'm gonna go buy some ice cream. I'll be back, guys. All right, so I think there's no doubt nowadays that 4K is just better than 1080. Yeah, there's some advantages to using 1080 and there's some disadvantages to using 4K, like big file sizes, and it's a little bit harder to work with. But overall, I think 4K is better than 1080. Not in every case, but most of the time. Case closed, we're not gonna talk about that. But the real question is, can you see the difference? Like if you film in 1080 or 4K, can people say for sure that that's 4K, that's 1080 without looking at the little wheel on the bottom of your YouTube video? P.S. How are you guys liking the audio presets? I put those out a couple days ago and you guys have been saying a lot of good things. Just like with the motion graphics, it saves a ton of time, makes audio processing way easier, way faster. I love using them. Let me know what you guys have thought of them so far. Anyways, hope you're liking them. Okay, so the intro of this video, I actually shot with a mix of different resolutions. So some of it's in 1080 and some of it's in 4K. Were you able to tell the difference? Did some clips look more like 1080 and some clips look more like 4K? Well, actually, some of them are in 720. You heard me right. Some of those clips from that intro are filmed in 720. I was only gonna do 1080 and 4K, but then I saw my brother make a video about 720 and using 120 frames per second on the EOS R in 720 and how he thought it was totally usable. So I decided to throw some 720 into the mix. So the question is, were you able to tell the difference between 720, 1080, and 4K? Could you see it? All right, so let's go through the edit and I will tell you which clips are in what resolution. So this first one was filmed in 1080. Then we had 720. This one was 4K, 1080, 720, 4K, 1080, 720, 1080, 4K, 1080, 720, 720, 4K, 4K, 1080. So how many did you get right? Because I'm pretty sure you were just guessing, and if I didn't tell you that some of it was 1080 and some of it was 4K and some of it was 720, you probably would have never ever guessed. And honestly, even though I know which clips I filmed in what resolution, I couldn't really see much of a significant difference. And this isn't like me looking on my iPhone and be like, I can't tell the difference. This is me looking at it on my iMac 5K screen and I cannot really see a significant difference. I wanted to do a few different tests, so I uploaded it in 1080. Not much difference there. I couldn't really see which one was 4K and which one was 1080. And then I thought there would be more of a difference if I uploaded in 4K. Again, really couldn't see the difference. They all kind of look the same. I thought for sure in 4K, because you're having to up-res those 1080 clips and you're having to really up-res those 720 clips, you would be able to see the difference really clearly. But again, I just could not see a significant difference. Yeah, there's a little bit of, if you really pixel peep, there's a little bit of difference in detail and that sort of thing, but very minimal. Again, if you didn't know, you wouldn't say, okay, that was weird. That was a 1080 clip. Why did you put a 1080 clip in this 4K timeline? You would not notice the difference. And some of you might be saying, okay, well, that's YouTube compression. Well, even just looking at the actual video clip on my 5K iMac Retina screen, I can't see much of a difference. I showed my editor, Matt. He really couldn't say which ones were which. I showed Peter and his friend. He couldn't say which ones are which. I showed Jesse Driftwood. He couldn't say which ones were which. Especially if you're watching it from a smartphone, there's no way you can tell the difference between even the 4K and 720p footage. And if you're saying right now that I could definitely tell the difference, you're lying. You got lucky with your guesses maybe, but there's no way you can actually see a definitive difference in between these clips. And for sure, 100%, I'm gonna put my house on it, say that that's 4K and that's 1080. And honestly, I'm kind of mind blown because I've always had this pressure to film in 4K, thinking that I wanna up my quality. I wanna always do the best quality that I can. So I've been thinking I need to push for 4K more, and that's why I tried the Sony out and that stuff, because I want my videos to be the best they can. So I've had this burden of 4K, but I think it's been all for nothing. I don't think there's that significant of a difference between 1080 and 4K, just looking at the image alone. Now, this was all shot on the EOS R, and the EOS R I think does a really good job in 1080. I think it's a pretty high bitrate codec, so it does a really good job in 1080, and apparently does pretty well in 720 also. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think the Sony would be as close. I think on a Sony, like the a7 III, you would be able to see more of a difference. I didn't test. Okay, I gotta test this out because I'm really curious now. Okay, let's do 1080 first. Or is it 4K? I'll never tell you. All right. Needed a memory card. Don't you hate it when you put the SD card in the wrong way and it gets stuck? Happens every time. All right, this shot is in 1080. Okay, here we go. 1080, filming, Sony a7 III. Gonna do a little head shake just to see. Okay, now for the 4K clip, or is it 1080? Are we seeing much of a difference? All right, I'm gonna get this on the computer just a second here. Give me a minute here. All right, I put it on the computer, looked at the two clips, and again, I'm kind of surprised. Okay, I think there is a little bit more of a difference. You can see, especially like in my beard, there's a little bit more detail in the 4K clips. But again, I thought there was gonna be a bigger difference between 1080 and 4K. Yeah, I always thought the 4K on the Sonys was much higher quality than the 1080, but maybe I'm wrong? There's definitely a detail difference, but it's not as much as I thought. I think the only big difference that I've been seeing is that there's a color shift. So in both cameras, especially in 720, the colors changed quite a bit, and both seem to actually push towards green for some reason. I don't know if that's just a fluke coincidence or if that's some sort of scientific thing. When you drop down to 720, it goes more green. Is that like a 180-degree shutter rule? I have no idea. But dang, I'm just really being proven wrong. I could have bet some money that the 4K would be a lot better than the 1080. I would say that when you're editing the footage, you can see the detail difference a lot more, but then once you export it, and especially once you put it on YouTube, the lines get really blurred and there isn't as much of a difference, which is really interesting to me. I don't know if you guys find this, I hope you find this interesting. If you're still watching this and you're really bored, then yeah, that's probably not a good thing. I'm starting to realize there isn't as much of a difference just looking at 4K versus 1080 footage. And again, I've had this burden on myself, and I feel like that burden is being lifted a little bit. I don't have that 4K burden, the burden of 4K, it's really heavy. I don't think I have that as much. I've always been a little bit bummed that the EOS R doesn't do 4K so well with the crop and everything, but I feel like, okay, I think I'm more comfortable again just using 1080 like I've been doing for a lot of my videos. So if you can't see a real significant difference, does it matter that you can't see a difference? Like, is this confirmation that everybody should just be filming in 1080 versus 4K and we could all save millions of hard drives and save the planet or something like that? Well, that would be great, saving a bunch of hard drives, money, and probably some of the environment. But I do think 4K still has a place, even though you can't see such a drastic difference. 4K is still definitely better a lot of times for the cropping and rescaling. And then I think a lot of cameras just shoot at a higher bitrate for the 4K, so you're gonna get a lot more detail and a lot more to work with when you're color grading and all of that stuff. Maybe that has to do also with the color shift, that the 720 or 1080 just doesn't latch on as well to the color grade. I've noticed that actually. So maybe that's a bit of a difference also, is when you're color grading it, 4K is a little bit better versus 1080, it kind of falls apart a little bit faster. I think bitrate, which a lot of people don't even understand what bitrate is, but it's basically the amount of data in each frame of your video clip. It has way more to do with the image looking good than just looking at 4K versus 1080. For example, if you shot a 4K clip on, let's say, the DJI Mavic Air Mavic. I always forget which way they go. Anyways, if you shot a 4K clip on the DJI drone and then, let's say, a 1080 on the Sony and definitely on the EOS R, I guarantee you the 1080 clip will look much better than the 4K clip on the DJI. And some of that has to do with sensor size and some of that has to do with bitrate. So there's just a lot of different factors for how good the image looks on top of the 4K 1080 debate, which most people, that's all they debate, is just how much resolution you have. You need 6K and 8K. An interesting thing I also learned through this whole process is if you film in 1080 and then you just upscale it to 4K and export it as a 4K video, YouTube will actually make it a lot higher quality than if you just made it 1080 and uploaded it 1080, just because of the whole compression and all that. It's probably using a higher bitrate for that 4K, so it comes out a lot nicer. So little pro tip there. Okay, so I think the conclusion here is that in most cases, there really isn't that big of a difference between 1080 and 4K, and even in some circumstances between 720 and 4K. Yes, more detail, but you really have to pixel peep, I feel like, to see that extra detail. For the most part, not a significant difference. Phew, the burden of 4K, I feel lighter. It's just lifted. Also, did you really think I was gonna spend this on ice cream? No. Although, now that I think of it, I do really want some ice cream. Short-term gain versus long-term gain. Ice cream does sound pretty good.